So much. Now to our topic of discussion for today. Over the last few weeks, we have heard one name that has constantly been mentioned in the media and even among small groups of discussions. And this was after she was appointed as the running mate to ex-President John Dramani Mahama of the NDC ahead of election 2020. As much as many people have extolled her for her achievements as a one-time education minister, a few others have also said that she is in no position to hold a candle to the face of the current Vice President, Dr. Mahamudu Bawumia. This probably could be because he has an economics background, unlike her, who comes from a background of education. And so there have been debates all over. And she said it herself when she was unveiled on Monday that she didn't think her name would create such an atmosphere of debates and conversations. And so today on the show, we want to find out from a political analyst if she will play a significant role at all in the NDC, of course, before the elections, during and even after, just by her nomination. And another political analyst had said earlier that he thinks that she would give Dr. Mahamudu Bawumia and the NPP a run for their money. Is that really the case? Before I introduce you to our political analyst, let me give you a bit of background of both of them, Professor Naana Opoku-Agyemang and Dr. Mahamudu Bawumia. So I'll start off with the professor. Now, she is the former Vice Chancellor of the University of Cape Coast, Ghana. She was actually the first female Vice Chancellor of a state university in Ghana, and she assumed duty on 1st October 2008. And she also taught and worked at the University of Cape Coast starting in 1986. She held various academic positions, including head of Department of English, Dean of the Faculty of Arts, Warden of Addition Hall. It goes on and on. And in March 2007, she was one of 5 scholars selected to deliver presentations during the 200th anniversary of the abolition of slavery at the United Nations headquarters in New York. In October 2009, she was elected Ghana's rep to the executive board of the United Nations Educational, Scientific and Cultural Organization. And ahead of the 2012 general elections, she moderated a debate. You remember that with Kojo Nkrumah. And between February 2013 and January 2017, she served as the education minister and also became the chancellor of the Women's University in Africa located in Zimbabwe on October 26, 2018. Now let's go on to Dr. Mahamudu Bawumia, and he currently is the vice president of the country, but also he was at the College of Accountancy in London, England as an economist, and also was an economist at the research department of the International Monetary Fund in Washington, D.C., USA. Between 1996 and 2000, he served as an assistant professor of economics in the Hankamer School of Business at Baylor University in Waco, Texas, USA, where he received the Young Researcher Award in 1998. Listed as well among the Who is Who among America's teachers in 1999. Returned to Ghana and worked as an economist at the Bank of Ghana. And he rose through the ranks and eventually became the deputy governor of the Bank of Ghana in June 2006. And when he was appointed as the running mate for, the NPP in 2016, that is when he resigned from his position as the deputy governor of the Bank of Ghana. And so what role do they play? And is it fair to even do a comparative analysis between the two? We have political analyst, and he's also a senior political lecturer as well, Dr. Echesika Anku. Good morning, Doc. Doc, can you hear me?
Yeah, hi. Good morning, Bella.
Good morning. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm pretty good. Thank you. How have you been?
I've been fine, thank you. Different look for today. We're doing the Afro and staying safe, I believe.
Yeah, all courtesy of COVID-19.
I know. But anyways, you're welcome. And I'm sure you heard the intro. Basically, a comparative analysis between the two. First question I want to ask is that, revered finance minister from the past. He's the longest serving finance minister, Dr. Kwesi Botwe. Professor Kwesi Botwe had said, at the unveiling of the professor, that the reason why we shouldn't believe that he actually rejected the position as running mate, but it's more so because he thought that it was necessary to not have a belief that the role of the VP connotes that of a background of economics. He also said something about the age. We'll come to that shortly. But he says that we should not, believe that the role of the vice president is related to economics. At what point did we start assuming that for you to be a vice president, you must have an economics background? Because if you look at the past vice presidents, it's only, and I may be wrong, but it's only the late Dr. Mr. Arthur who had a background in economics. So at what point did we start making that assertion
Thank you very much for your question, Bella. I think it's a fair question. I like it. First of all, I think the reason why this is the case is because at the end of the day, it has been realized over time that bread and butter issues, economic issues, lie at the heart of people's well-being, or at the heart of elections or campaigns, or at least at the heart of people's lives. People are concerned about how they're going to survive. They are concerned about how they put food on the table and how they be able to cater for their families.
Yeah.
And so because of that, that particular concern has translated into the political sphere, because the job of politics, or the job of politicians or government, is to be able to provide an equitable atmosphere or economic conditions for people to feed themselves and basically survive. And we all know that.
Okay.
So I think I think that's where it comes from. And then over time, because of this particular concern, over time, it so then happened that if that is the case, then it would really be important to get leaders who are who have expertise in those economic areas. So I think it is because of that reason, that is why that then translated into the leadership. But you're right, it hadn't always been the case. It was the case in 2008, which is when Dr. Mahamudu Bawumia burst onto the scene.
Yeah.
Because I believe that Nana Akufo-Addo made that decision that, as far as he was concerned, he was to prioritize somebody with economic expertise.
Okay.
As his VP. Yeah, that's the decision he made. And so Dr. Bawumia burst onto the scene, and the rest is history, as we all know now.
But then does
in 2012,
Yeah, okay, carry on, sorry.
No, I was just going to say that in 2012, we saw His Excellency Emisa Arthur, the late Emisa Arthur, God bless him. So we also saw him come up onto the scene with some economic credentials. And those credentials are important because he has a history. When you go back to the US, for instance, it was Bill Clinton who said one time that it's the economy stupid, and permit me to use that word. Why did he say so? Everybody wondered when Clinton was down in the gutter, they thought he was going to lose because of impeachment. He won. And they said, what happened? And he said, well, it's the economy. People, no matter what happens, it's all back to the economy.
Yeah.
You understand? So that is the context.
But if that's the case, I mean, does it make any difference that the professor now has been appointed as a running mate, looking at her background? And how then is the NDC going to be able to market her to fill that slot or that void that has been created, just because of her background in education? Right.
Great question. So, the argument can always be made, though, that it is not, it's not even a requirement. Nobody has written it anywhere that the VP has to be an economist. It is just out of that context and history that I've given. That is why it has come there. But it does not mean, under any circumstance, that is a sine qua non or a certain requirement for leadership, right? So at the end of the day, the argument can be made that you don't have to be an economist to be a leader. Otherwise, we wouldn't have all the leaders that we've had.
Yeah.
It's not all of them that have been economists. Yes. So the argument can be made that it is about leadership, it is about management, it is about organization, it's about understanding the plight of people, it is about having the right capabilities, the right insights to be able to analyze and to be able to give direction and leadership. Because at the end of the day, a leader is the one who provides the vision and the direction and gets on board people to do the work. I'm sure that is a whole leadership discussion other people can better about. But the leader does not have to do everything. And so he provides that broad vision. Very, very, very important. So that argument can always be made. So I don't necessarily think that there is a certain requirement in that respect, but it is a political strategy, that a party can adapt. So that said then, look at Professor Naana Opoku-Agyemang, and then you ask the question, how does she fit into it? I'm sure that the NDC made a decision that, hey, well, we are confident about our steering of the economy. We trust our leader, John Mahama, to be able to preside over an economy. After all, he's been a vice president before. He's offered that leadership over the economy. So he made that decision. They thought, or they do think that they have the people or the team to be able to offer that leadership.
Yeah.
And so what it was important to them, I'm sure, was that they needed somebody who would offer the kind of leadership as a vice president, or the kind of complementarity, somebody who complements the candidate as much as they could. And in my own research that we did, some internal research that we're doing, I began to get a feeling that people had soured on the idea of an economist vice president. It was no more a huge currency. When we did that research, people were saying that, hey, you know what? We don't care if the person is an economist or not.
Yeah.
All we need is a respectable, capable, credible, qualified candidate who would come in and offer a leadership based on integrity for our nation. Somebody who would rise up to the aspirations of our people and understand the needs of our people, and be able to connect with them and offer the kind of leadership that will take our country to where we want to go to. If you do this kind of audience research, and I'm just sharing it for now for the first time, then it means that you begin to understand the psyche of the populace or of the voters of the people. And that then, it makes a whole lot of sense then as to why they went that way. So I'm not going to underestimate the political intuition or the political skills of President Mahama or whoever made that decision, or the team that made that decision. And so I'm pretty sure it was a response to that kind of feeling among the audience. And so that is the position that we are right now. Yes, they're making the argument that she's not an economist, but we do not think it is even necessary. Because otherwise, then it means nobody else can be president, right? We care more about somebody who is a person of integrity. And somebody who is a person of respect. I think that is the argument that they put forward.
But should the argument again also be about the fact that one of the weaknesses of the NDC as to why they lost the elections in 2016 was the fact that ex-president John Dramani Mahama was disconnected from the grassroots level of the party, and also was not able to rope in the middle class of society. And a lot of people have argued that that's also proved to be a major reason why the NDC may have lost the elections. Now, when we look at the work that Dr. Bawumia put into the campaign ahead of the elections, you realize that he got into the trenches, he did the dirty work. And the question has been that for someone like the professor, who's just been a card-holding member for 7 years only, since she became education minister, they are not sure if she's really connected to the grassroots and to the middle class. And between now and December, we just have about 5 months. Is that enough time for her to do that dirty work? Must she necessarily also get into the trenches and get her hands dirty? And will that also play any significant role in whether the NDC wins or not? What do you have to say about this?
Yeah, well, I think you are really hitting some 3 pointers and some home runs with your question. Yeah, great question. I love it. It's very fair. Yeah, it's a fair question. Yes, if I can remember from where you started from, you talked about her ability to connect with the grassroots.
Yeah. And
you gave the premise that coming out of 2016 elections, one of the major concerns, and we can all go back to the Kwesi report, we knew that one of the big concerns was the disconnection or the dichotomy between the campaign and the grassroots. And so that was a concern. And so you would expect that going ahead, one of the things that the campaign will address would be to be able to speak to strengthening that connection with the grassroots and getting everybody on board. If you listen very carefully to the General Mosquito Siedu Katia's speech, the General Secretary, if you put a lens on that speech and you try to go into the underlying meanings and what he was trying to achieve on Monday when they were outdooring Professor Naana Opoku-Agyemang, he really spoke to that. For those who were very careful, he knew who he was speaking to. He talked about the importance of party unity. Professor Naana Opoku-Agyemang for herself, if you listen very carefully to her initial public outburst, she has been emphasizing the importance of bringing everybody on board. And so, yes, that is a fair concern. Also because she is not an out-and-out party person. And what I mean by that is that, yes, she was part of the Mahamudu administration. She was Minister of Education for the entire duration of the term. She's as Mahamite as you can put it. But as far as you can go, but as far as her political experience, her political skills, and her political history is concerned, there is a bit of a deficit over there. And so you begin to wonder, does she have that political sagacity? Does she have that political intuition? Does she have that natural connection and intuitive connection to the grassroots and to the ordinary voter? Is she going to be able to build that emotional connection to the ordinary voter or to the grassroots? And that is a question that remains to be seen of her, because we are yet to see her on the campaign stump. We are yet to see her on the campaign trail. We are yet to see her arouse the crowd, energize them, galvanize them, get them into action. Go do door-to-door campaigns, sit down with them, listen to them. That is something that we are yet to see. And we do not know, for instance, what the grassroots feel about this choice. At this point, it looks like everybody is on board with it. But we need to find out if really the grassroots have come around to this particular choice. That's definitely something for political connoisseurs to be watching as we go ahead. As far as this race is concerned, I'm not saying she can't do it. We're just saying that is definitely one of the deficits or one of the gaps that we are looking forward to do. If you look at her on Monday, I think she was very comfortable talking on that stage. I think she was very conversational. I think she was very explanatory, very confident, and very comfortable in her own skin talking on that day. And so there's no reason why she cannot do that. But of course, we are yet to see how that will pan out as we go ahead in the race.
Let's bring in the age factor. And the reason I'm saying that is because by 2030, it's been estimated that Africa's population will be largely made up of youth. A lot of these young people are saying that it's time for you to give us leadership positions as well, so we can also showcase our talents and possibly harness our talents. Yesterday, our colleague, Komla Kluche, put out the story about his interaction with Professor Kwesi Botwe, where he asked about whether he really rejected the position of running mate. And he said, no, he didn't. However, and I'll read what he actually said. No, I did not reject the offer to be running mates. There is time for everything. Every party must forge a generational transition so that the older ones step back and give guidance and support. And so clearly what he's indicating is that the nomination of Professor Jane and Opoku-Agyemang means that they are giving another generation the opportunity to serve. When you check the age of the professor, she's 68 years. And Professor Kwesi Botwe is around 76 years or so. So some people will say that's a fair point. But really, Dr. Bawumia is 56 years old. So he's much younger. And someone could say that he, probably connects with the youth more because of his age than the professor. Does this argument hold water based on what Professor Kwesi Botwe said, that they are giving the younger generation the opportunity to serve, and they're giving the party fresh faces so they can connect? Does it really hold water based on her nomination?
Thank you very much. Of course, the youth vote is always an important demographic group or up for grabs in an election. And you did premise that with the statistics or with the facts about the youth demographic group in our country. Important group. Now, yes, it's an interesting argument, but it's also very intriguing, especially because Professor Naana Opoku-Agyemang is not as young as you might want to make it sound, which is the point that you were speaking to. In fact, like you said, Dr. Bawumia is younger than her. So it's a very intriguing argument. But I think the point that Professor Kwesi Botwe wanted to make was that he definitely represents what I like to call the old block or the old school of our political framework or of the NDC faction. He comes from the Rawlings camp. We all know that. Longest serving finance minister. I mean, he's been at this for as long as we could. And sometimes I even wonder if some of the present generation have as much intimate details about him as some of us in the past. So, and that would have been one of the drawbacks of the Kwesi Botwe candidate, although it would have had its own strengths. I think one of the drawbacks would have been the age factor, and if the youth of today would be able to connect with him. So I can understand what he means by that, because it is an admission of that particular gap if he was appointed. I understand that. But on the raw details of the age factor, I don't think that probably holds as much water. But if you listen to Professor Naana Opoku-Agyemang on Monday, she tried to pivot. she tried to pivot. And there are a lot of people who will tell you that their youth, in terms of their approach, their policy, and all of that, even if not in terms of their age. But if you listen, let's stay with the facts.
Okay.
If you listen to her on Monday, you'll realize that she did make an attempt for that. One of the major themes of her address, if you do the content analysis of the speech, it was a couple of them: women empowerment, and the second thing was youth empowerment. She deliberately, consciously spoke to the youth of this country. So she knew exactly what she was doing on that stage. And so, yes, she might not be as young as you think, as young as we would know who a young person to be, should be. But I do think that she made a play. I do think she made a play for that particular constituency. Okay. Because she spoke to exactly what Kwesi Botwe said. And if you are very careful, you realize that Kwesi Botwe uses that keyword, generational. She spoke to the generational aspirations of young people. I do think she made a play for that. She sounded very patriotic, and she sounded very inspiring, inspirational for a lot of people. And of course, for a lot of young girls, I mean, there are stories. I know people who have said that I have daughters who watched that and they said, whoa, can I be this one day? So we cannot underestimate the impact that this will have on young people, but especially young girls who are in school, who want to make something out of their lives, who are looking up to a role model, who are looking for some inspiration for themselves, and for parents who hope that their own children can rise to the same level that Professor Naana Opoku-Agyemang has risen to. Cannot underestimate the impact of that particular fact.
We'll talk about the impact of gender, in the election shortly. But before we go that, there's something else that I would want to ask you concerning this particular issue. And it's the fact that I want us to compare the achievements as against the policy failures of both, candidates. So Dr. Bawumia is currently in power. And so as a vice president, has he delivered, and what have been his weaknesses as against Professor Naana Opoku-Agyemang, who was an education minister? They've also extolled her achievements in that sector, but at the same time, there are lots of them who have also said they were not happy with some of the policies that she put out, which affected a lot of people. Under her, they're saying, there's a report that says that, we had the lowest literacy, level when it comes to the grading as well. So how do we put both of them together in terms of qualities and achievements and failures? Tell me more about that.
Right. Thank you, Bella. And I hate to do this to you, but this is one of the areas that we might need a little bit of research and introspection. Okay. Because it's got to be based on the facts. But it's a fair concern. Because that's the I don't know what's the exciting or the unique thing about this race. The fact that it is the first time that we are having a former one-term president put up himself for office, and also a former Minister of Education as the VP. So what it means is that there are known quantities in our political space. Normally, when people are running for office and they are in the opposition, it is the case that they have not even been president before. They are just a flag bearer. But in this case, he's not an incumbent, but he's been president before. So we do have a record that we have to be scrutinized. And the former vice president has been a minister of education. There is the record of that can be scrutinized. And I do think that really is where the media should be focusing their attention. And we want an election based on facts. We want an election based on ideas. We want an election based on records, and not an election based on attacks, personalization, trivializations, and a lot of mediocre stuff. So I do think that is where the focus is, and I'll throw the ball back to you and your team to do that kind of comparison, because there is a record of both of them which needs to be looked at, whether it's in the economy, whether it is their efforts towards corruption, whether it is education, whether it's what they did for young people. We all know about the teachers' allowances and all of that. There is a very, very, very important debate to be had over there.
We surely will have that. But does the fact that the professor is female also play any role? Is it impactful? And does it necessarily mean that people are going to vote because for the first time a major political party has nominated a woman? Will it translate into votes, or do you think that she has a lot more work to do as against Dr. Bawumia and maybe the achievements that he has chalked so far as vice president?
Yeah, thank you. And I think we talked a little bit about this when we were addressing the issue, right? But let's just finish it up. Yes, it would. I would not underestimate the kind of impact that the nomination of the first female VP candidate for a major political party or one of the two political parties who have won power in Ghana will do to the psyche of voters in an election. I'm not going to underestimate that. Before this happened, I did some form of analysis, and we at CPD did some work on the vice presidential candidate, and I came up with certain permutations and said that if John Mahama wants to change the dynamics of the race, because you see, the thing is that I think the decision on Mahama has been settled. The debate on Mahama has been settled. You know, except he does something so extraordinarily different. I mean, the debate has been settled. People know who he is and all of that. The only way he can change that dynamic or get people to take a second look at it is what I said. I called if he took what I called a game changer pick, or he made a game changing appointment. And a game changing appointment means that you are fundamentally altering the dynamics of the race. And how do you achieve this? You achieve this in two respects. I said you do this if you end up appointing a female candidate, and I was even very, very specific. I said if you ended up appointing a competent, respectable or a very well respected female candidate, that's what I said. Yeah. Or a political outsider. And a political outsider means that somebody who is not known to be part of the back and forth of our body politics. I will put out a name out there. I'll tell you later. But so these are the things.
Why not now? Why don't you tell us now?
Okay, so let me finish with this, and then I'll get a political outsider or a competent, very well respected female candidate. And he did. I mean, his political strategy skills are really up there. He did get onto that and ended up appointing a female candidate. In fact, we did a forum at GIG called the Vice Presidential Permutations Forum. And one of my guests said the same thing, Dr. Nansanta Yakub said the same thing. We came to a conclusion that was going to change the dynamics of the race in a very fundamental way. And there you have it. He has done that. And so for a lot of people, trust me, there are people out there who are going to go out there and vote on voting day to make a statement. Okay, and people say that we vote for the top of the ticket and not the bottom of the ticket. Yeah. But sometimes when you have a very paranormal, out of the box candidate, it does have the potential to gain you some momentum. It is not a panacea. It is not a prima facie. It is not a done deal, or it's not a slam dunk that would win you the race. But it's definitely going to buy you some mileage and give you the space and chance to alter the dynamics of the race. And I think that is what he has done, because I've been speaking to people. I try to do my research and get a pulse, a sense of how people are feeling about this. And there are people who are going to go out there and vote just because of the history or the inspiration or the statement that such a candidate or a choice, a VP choice, will make in our body politic. And so it may gain on.
All right, finally, before I let you go, now the other thing that has come up is the fact that they're saying, and we've all said it, that it looks like we're playing Mortal Kombat with our politics. So there are uppercuts and jabs here and there. Everybody speaks, and it's like, let me throw shade.
Like they're playing what?
Mortal Kombat.
Okay.
With the politics. So it's like everybody comes to speak, and they need to throw jabs at the opposition. So they probably do it plainly, But then when she spoke on Monday, even though she gave some jabs, it was very subtle. She used grammar to cover it up nicely. And so the people are saying that then she's here to change the face of politics and make it more appealing. Because for a lot of people, maybe the reason they have not ventured into politics is because they think that it's too vile and they don't want to get involved in the back and forth. But she looks like she'll make it appealing. Do you believe that as well?
I've got to give credit where credit is due. I think she was dignified. I think she was decent. I think she was decorous in her attitude, in her tone, in her approach to that speech that day, and in framing or constructing her political identity or her political architecture. She succeeded in coming out as very polite, very polite, very well composed, very calm, very mannerful in that respect, as opposed to somebody who was very vile, very disingenuous, and very bombastic in their approach. That I got to give credit for that.
Hasn't Dr. Bawumia also done well in that field?
Yeah, I know what you are trying to do here, but
I'm not trying to do anything. I'm just asking you. You are the analyst, so tell us what you make of his statements over time.
No problem. Let me finish up with it. And it is important because political communication is essential in our body politics. The way we communicate is very important. It can it ignites people to go out there and cause violence. It can lead to conflict. It can lead to a lot of violence in our body politics. And that has been a very big complaint about the kind of democracy that we have and the nature of the discourse that we have in our body politics. The importance of it rising above, the bar and being very decorous. And I do think that, as far as that is concerned, she definitely scores very, very high marks over there. But of course, she did she did have some attacks in there. But you are right, the attacks were not so glaring. They were very backhanded in that respect. And I'm sure at some point, we're trying to catalog what those attacks are. Because she did have them over there, but they were done in a very respectful manner. And I do think that is the sort of thing that we are looking out for in our body politics. Because at the end of the day, people really don't care about the back and forth in politics. But all they care about is that politics becomes a force for good for them. That politics is able to provide that space or that environment or that aspiration, that equal footing for everybody, for all of us, our brothers, our sisters, our children, all of us to be able to aspire to the very heights that we can be in society. And if we can prove to our younger ones that politics is not all dirty, it's not a dirty game, that it can be a force for good in society, then we can get a lot more people involved in the process. And together we'll be able to build the kind of nation or the kind of society that we all hope or aspire for, if not even for ourselves, but for those who are coming after us.
All right. Thank you so much, Dr. Echezikanku, for speaking to us. It's been very enlightening. And he is a political scientist and also a political science lecturer, a lead, actually. And so we've been talking about, or comparing, actually, the running mate for the NDC, Professor Naana Jane Opoku-Agyemang, as against the current Vice President, Dr. Mahamudu Bawumia, looking at the chances of both parties ahead of the December 7 elections. What do you make of this? You can join us as well on social media. Let us know what you think about